Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Hannah, and today we're gonna be talking about books that the internet did not lie about. These are my top 5 fantasy books that are recommendations that I got from the internet. Now, there's a lot of reading I have done of late that I'm not including anything that's not a product of booktube or book talk, if you get what I mean. And by that I mean, like, for example, The Hobbit, a classic, definitely was persuaded to get over my intimidation of this book because of the internet, but it's one, my knowledge of this predates any access I had to the internet as a kid. It it's such a classic, and you know, I just don't feel like a classic like this goes on this list. Like, to be on this list, it has to be a internet age book, if that makes sense. So I hope that's clear. Because I know that if I made a kind of like overall favorite books, there would be so many books that predate the internet that I would include, but I'm not including them in this list because they're not of the internet age, if that makes sense. With that being said, let's just jump into the list and hopefully you guys agree. And maybe you might take a recommendation or two from this list. This is just my personal taste. These are just the books that are recommendations that I took from the internet, and it actually worked out. So let's just get into it. So the first book is by V.E. Schwab, A Darker Shade of Magic. This is about a young prince named Kel, and he's the adoptive son of the royal family, and he has a rare kind of magic that allows him to travel from place to place. And this gets him in a lot of trouble. It puts him in the middle of this plot, and he kind of comes together with another character in our kind of version of London, but several hundred years in the past, like Georgian England. And her name is Lila Bard, and the two of them try and untangle the mess that they've got themselves into, because the magic in this world is very dangerous. It kind of has its mind of its own. So yeah, I would definitely recommend this. It was definitely one that got me back into reading fiction. This was like the first fiction book I picked up for almost a year because I was in such like a big reading slump, and then reading history nonfiction got me out of that reading slump, and then this just got me back into fiction. And oh, yeah, I have no regrets about picking up this series. There is another 2 books after this one, and then V.E. Schwab has actually started a kind of like spin-off, The Fragile Threads of Power, which I've also read. And yeah, this is just so good. The internet definitely did not lie on this one. I was so behind the times on reading this one. In my defense, I was like 11, 12 when this came out. So that's my only defense for being so late to the game, because this came out in like 2015. But yeah, the internet did not lie with this one, so I would definitely recommend. Okay, so this next book, you've probably seen everyone and their dog talking about this book on BookTube, and rightfully so. This so lived up to every expectation I had going into it. It's cozy, the romance is so good, but yet it's not the center of everything, and I just love when a romance isn't the center of a fantasy. Like, don't get me wrong, romance is fine in fantasies, just don't let it take over, you know? And I just really appreciate the work that Heather Fawcett as an author has put into making her fairy lore so accurate in things to folklore. Like, a lot of research must have gone into this, and Emily as a character is just so good, and the unique kind of like diary element to it as well is really enjoyable. Yeah, the internet did not lie about this one, and I think it is accurately hyped. So yeah, this is definitely one I would recommend if you're looking for a kind of historical, cozy, academic, natural history kind of fantasy. So definitely give this one a go. Now, this is Babel, and this is set in 1820s Oxford, England, and it's written by R.F. Kuang, and it follows kind of language students at Oxford. And at its heart, it's anti-colonial, and it's kind of asking the question, how far can you go? Like, at what point is violence necessary? And when you're up against something like the British Empire, when it, like, violence is necessary. And you follow Robin, who's one of our linguists. He's our main character, and you're kind of seeing the story through his eyes, and his kind of like group of friends that he's made at Oxford. And you kind of follow them over the years at Oxford as things deteriorate and as tensions heighten, and things, as the British Empire becomes harder and harder to ignore in an institution like Oxford. And the kind of position and kind of the kind of advantage that the Empire is using these linguists, especially because they're people of colour. And the fantasy element comes in that the British Empire has gone into these places to collect metal, and this metal is very magical, and it's all about kind of the magic of translation, and that's why the linguists are so valuable, and why why everyone's put in this position in the first place. So it's very interesting. R.F. Kuang is so, like, this is the one thing I've read from her so far, and I'm so glad that I did, because it was so good. I cried after, and yeah, the hype is real with this one. If you're looking for something academic, fantasy, anti-colonial with a very solid message, definitely pick up Babel. Definitely. You will not be the same. I guarantee it. And yeah, I guarantee it. You will not be the same after you've read this, because I wasn't. This changed my brain chemistry. So definitely pick this one up. Now, this one is hyped up, but I would recommend this one, but I know it's a mixed bag, so I'm not going to say I recommend it for everyone, but this is just one that when people hyped it up, I believed them, and it paid off. This is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. Oh, this book. It's set in kind of like the late Victorian era, set throughout until kind of like the Edwardian era. And you follow two magicians, and they're kind of in a competition with one another, set up by kind of like their mentors, if you will, and they've kind of got to compete against each other, and it's set over so many years, and I just love the setting. I love the circus as a character within itself. I love the writing. Yeah, I just think Erin Morgenstern paid off for me as a person. Her style and things may not be for everyone, but for me it did pay off. And if you think flowery writing, slower paced, kind of beautiful poeticness is your kind of thing, but it's definitely slow, and definitely look at reviews, because I can see what people are saying, but just for me, I didn't see any problems people had with it. For me, it just paid off, you know what I mean? So yeah, The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I'm so glad I listened to the internet about this one, because I enjoyed it so much. I read this back in November, and I had such a good time. I know you're probably sick to death of people recommending this book, but Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I'm not the same. I read this as a teenager for the first time, and I've read it so many times since, just revisiting the story of Kaz, Nina, Jasper, Wylan, Matthias, Inej, just all of them have my heart. If you're looking for a found family trope, a high story, found family, kind of a darker fantasy, definitely give this one a go because it is so freaking good. I cannot recommend it enough. It's YA, so our characters are teenagers, which, like, rereading this, because I think I was like 14, 15 when I first read this, and then I reread it when I was like 19. So rereading it at like 19, it was a crazy experience because I was like, you guys are like 2 years younger than me now. That's crazy. How, like, you know that feeling when suddenly you're older than all the YA protagonists you've been reading about since you were like 12? It's a crazy experience. Because that was when I was slowly going into a reading slump. Got to love it. Um, but yeah, this book is one of the books I read as a teenager that just held up, and I'm so glad I listened to the internet. 15-year-old me knew that the internet was telling the truth about this one, so I'm so glad I did. Um, so yeah, that's the complete list. So this is the final top 5 books that I believe the internet did not lie about, or more specifically, the fantasy books that the internet did not lie about, should I say. At least in my personal experience, I enjoyed every single one of these. One of these had something I loved that stuck in my brain, something that I just hadn't read or seen in a book before, and I just had to appreciate it. Um, and I thought I would compile this list to give them some more appreciation because I just want to talk about these books all the time. And it's so fun to revisit and think about books a while after you've actually read them, so you actually feel like the reading you're doing pays off and that you actually do remember something about what you've been reading recently. You know what I mean? So these are so amazing books. So yeah, these are just my personal taste. Of course, there's probably ones on this list that did not pay off for you and that you feel like the hype on the internet did lie to you. And there's probably um you know, people's tastes are just different. These are just ones that I felt the internet didn't lie about for my taste. Um so yeah, I'm incredibly happy with this little list. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Give a comment and thumbs up if you did too, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye!